Hari. Jayo Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jayo Krishna Balaram, Jayo Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jayo Krishna Balaram. Jayo Nittai Gauranga, Jayo Nittai Gauranga. Nittai Gauranga, Jayo Nittai Gauranga. Jayo Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from 9th Canto, 18th chapter, text number 40. Please repeat after me. Shri Yadur Uvacha. Shri Yadur Uvacha. Notsahe Jarasasthatum. Notsahe Jarasasthatum. Antara Praptaya Tvaya. Antara Praptaya Tava. aviditva sukham gramyam. Aviditva sukham gramyam. Vaitsrunyam naiti purushaha. Vaitsrunyam naiti purushaha. Shri Yaduruvacha. Notsahe jarasastatum. Nutsahe jarasastatum. Antara praptaya tava. Abhiditya sukham gramyam. Vaitrishnam naiti purushaha. Shri Yaduruvacha. Notsahe jarasastatum. Antara praptaya tava. Abhiditva sukham gramyam. Vaitrishnam naiti purushaha. Shri Yaduruvacha. Notsahe jarasastatum. Vaitrishnam naiti purushaha. Word to word translation. Shri Yaduhu Uvacha. Please repeat after me. Shri Yaduhu Uvacha. Yadu, the eldest son to Yayati, replied, Na utsahe. I am not enthusiastic. Jarasa. With your old age and invalidity. Sthatum. To remain. Antara. While in youth. Praptaya. Accepted. Tava. Your. Aviditva. Without experiencing. Sukham. Happiness. Gramyam. Material or bodily. Vaitsrunyam. Indifference to material enjoyment. Na. Does not. Eti. Attain. Purushaha. A person. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Yadu replied, My dear father, you have already achieved old age, although you also were a young man. But I do not welcome your old age and invalidity. For unless one enjoys material happiness, one cannot attain renunciation. Purport. Renunciation of material enjoyment is the ultimate goal of human life. Therefore, the Varnashrama institution is most scientific. It aims at giving one the facility to return home, back to Godhead, which one cannot do without completely renouncing all connections with the material world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Niskinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajanon Mukhasya. One who wants to go back home, back to Godhead, must be niskinchana, free from all affinity for material enjoyment. Brahmani upasamashrayam. Unless one is fully renounced, one cannot engage in devotional service. A stay in Brahman. Devotional service is rendered on the Brahman platform. Therefore, unless one attains the Brahman platform or spiritual platform, one cannot engage in devotional service. Or in other words, a person engaged in devotional service is already on the Brahman platform. Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita 14.26. If one attains devotional service, therefore, he is certainly liberated. Generally, unless one enjoys material happiness, one cannot attain renunciation. Varnashrama therefore gives the opportunity for gradual elevation. Yadu, the son of Maharaj Yayati, explained that he was unable to give up his youth, for he wanted to use it to attain the renounced order in the future. Maharaj Yadu was different from his brothers, as stated in the next verse. Turvasus choditah pitra druhyus chanuscha bharata pratyachakyur adarmagnaha. Maharaj Yadu's brothers refused to accept their father's proposal because they were not completely aware of dharma. To accept orders that follow religious principles, especially the orders of one's father, is very important. Therefore, when the brothers of Maharaj Yadu refused their father's order, this was certainly irreligious. Maharaj Yadu's refusal, however, was religious, as stated in the 10th canto. Yaduscha dharma shilasya. Maharaj Yadu was completely aware of the principles of religion. The ultimate principle of religion is to engage oneself in devotional service to the Lord. Maharaja Yadu was very eager to engage himself in the Lord's service. But there was an impediment. During youth, the material desire to enjoy the material senses is certainly present, and unless one fully satisfies these lusty desires in youth, there is a chance of one's being disturbed in rendering service to the Lord. We have actually seen that many sannyasis who accept sannyasa prematurely, not having satisfied their material desires, fall down because they are disturbed. Therefore, the general process is to go through Grhastha life and Vanaprastha life and finally come to sannyasa and devote oneself completely to the service of the Lord. Maharaja Yadu was ready to accept his father's order and exchange youth for old age, because he was confident that the youth taken by his father would be returned. But because this exchange would delay his complete engagement in devotional service, he did not want to accept his father's old age, for he was eager to achieve freedom from disturbances. Moreover, among the descendants of Yadu would be Lord Krishna. Therefore, because Yadu was eager to see the Lord's appearance in his dynasty as soon as possible, Yadu refused to accept his father's proposal. This was not irreligious, however, because Yadu's purpose was to serve the Lord. Because Yadu was a faithful servant of the Lord, Lord Krishna appeared in his dynasty. As confirmed in the prayers of Kunti, Yado Priyasyanu Jayaya Priyasya Anva Vaye. Yadu was very dear to Krishna, who was therefore eager to descend in Yadu's dynasty. In conclusion, Maharaj Yadu should not be considered adharmagna, ignorant of religious principles, as the next verse designates his brothers. He was like the four Sanakas, Chatushana, who refused the order of their father Brahma for the sake of a better cause. Because the four Kumaras wanted to engage themselves completely in the service of the Lord as brahmacharis, their refusal to obey their father's order was not irreligious. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yenam Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Itinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktarunda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yadu replied, My dear father, you have already achieved old age, although you were also a young man. But I did not welcome your old age and invalidity, for unless one enjoys material happiness, one cannot attain renunciation. So we see here a very interesting history being discussed, which is a lot of lessons for us in our practice of Varnashrama, Devi Varnashrama. The backstory of all of this is a little intricate, you know. The story, all of this story begins with two friends, Sharmishta and Devyani. Sharmishta is the daughter of the king. What is the king's name? Vrishabharva. Vrishabharva is the name of the king. And Devayani was whose daughter? Shukracharya's daughter. Right? So, big stories or histories begin with, very interesting situations. It's very nice to learn from this. So, Sharmishta and Devayani, along with, a bunch of friends, were all sporting in the royal gardens. So there was a beautiful river, and there were lotuses, growing over there. And, as you can imagine, young girls, they wanted to sport in the water. So they all got into the water. At that time, and they were playing with each other, at that time, Lord Shiva happened to pass by with Mother Parvati on Nandi. And then all the girls realized, oh, Lord Shiva is here, because they entered the water naked. They quickly came out and started wearing their dress in shame. At that time, in that haribari, Sharmishta so happened that she wore Devayani's dress. See, and the simple, it's a very simple matter. Somebody wore somebody's dress. What does it make? What difference does it make? For this, Devayani got very, very angry. And she started big. She said, how dare you touch, my dress? You are like a crow that's eating the leftover remnants of yagna. We are Bhrugu's descendants. We are the mouth of Lord Vishnu, and this and that, and you are after all Kshatriya, daughter. Who are you? What is your level? This. Just think about it. Such a simple thing, simple matter. The whole story begins from this. Okay, at least at this point, if Sharmishta had been a little reserved, saying, okay, my friend, today bad mood, some nonsense she is talking, let me just ignore. Right? If she had ignored that day, all problem would have been solved. Right? That's why I keep saying, when some altercation happens, 24 hours, you can just go sleep. Not even 24 hours. If it happens in the evening, just go sleep. The next day morning, half the problem will be solved. But Sharmishta, being a Kshatriya's daughter, she got even more furious. She only did words, so she did action. So first she said, you useless Devayani, you are like beggars. You are waiting for our favors from us. Without we giving you donation and all that, how will you live? Beggars like you are scolding me, that too for such a silly thing. That is the only part that is true in this, for such a silly thing. Everything else was just, kama, krodha, how they say that is a gateway to hell. And so she became so furious that she not only scolded her but also pushed her into a well and went away home. At least the friends nearby should have said, okay, the matter is over, let us pull her out. They just left and went. And it so happened at that time, King Yayati was happening to pass by. And he was, by the will of providence, he became thirsty and went to the well to drink water. And as he was reaching to get the water, he was surprised to see Devayani inside the well, and she was naked. And in the well, and so he gave his upper garment to her. And out of compassion, he gave her hand to her and pulled her out. So in the Vedic tradition, a woman is supposed to be seen naked only by the husband. And when giving a hand literally means marrying. That was the Vedic tradition, right? So that is why Devayani said, you see, there is a little bit of backstory to this also. Devayani would have been cursed that she should not, that she will not get to marry a Brahmana. So he said, see, this is the will of providence. I was cursed to never marry a Brahmana even though I am born in a Brahminican family, because she had cursed somebody else. And she got a counter curse for that. Be careful about, especially when devotees sometimes underestimate the power of our chanting and our religious practices and all that. If we wish ill towards somebody, there are reactions because those things actually happen. Okay, in Kali Yuga at least wishing in your mind is bad, but it is not that bad. If you actually willfully wish and say things, it is even more bad. But the world is very complicated. We have to be very careful about these things. Now there are reactions to it. She had the power, being Shukracharya's daughter, she cursed, and she got a counter curse. You will never marry a Brahmana. And so he said, by the will of providence, this has happened. And so please accept me as your wife. And Yayati was actually didn't want to, because he's a Kshatriya and she is a Brahmana's daughter, right? Is this Anuloma or Pratiloma? I think Pratiloma. Pratiloma is a person from a lower Varna marrying a woman from a higher Varna. So that's but he was attracted by Devayani's beauty, and so he said yes. And then Devayani goes to Shukracharya and tells the whole story, and she's crying. And Shukracharya also got furious. He said, what is the use of this priesthood and all that here? Very angrily left the house. It's better to beg from the fields, and leftover grains in the fields. Like that, he left the house. And then as he was furiously going, Vrishaparva, the king, knew that he is coming to my house to curse me. And he knows the power of Shukracharya. And he realizes that though the first problem was Devayani's problem, Sharmishta's reaction to it was much, much more severe than what she should have done. Just some conversation happened, at least that would have ended there. But she took action. So he rushes out of the house, and as Shukracharya is coming, he falls at his feet and then holds his feet and begs forgiveness. Oh, Shukracharya, please forgive this thing. Please, my daughter did a mistake. Give some solution. And then he takes Shukracharya inside and worships him nicely and pacifies him. And Shukracharya now is a little bit pacified. And then he says, okay, I'll give one solution. You marry Devayani. Oh, sorry, not you marry. Yayati will marry Devayani. Now you give Sharmishta as a maid servant to Devayani. Wherever she goes, she should go as a maid servant. And Vishwaparva is thinking, this is better than getting cursed by Shukracharya and our whole family getting destroyed. And she accepts and gives as a maid servant. Now look at Sharmishta's situation. Because of her anger, from queen's daughter, she became a maid servant. Now Yayati marries Devayani. At that time, Shukracharya warns, see, I'm giving my daughter, but be careful, you don't ever associate with this Sharmishta. And then it is said that Devayani, Shukracharya was so powerful, 1,000 maid servants. So they all went to Yayati's palace, and after due course of time, Devayani had a beautiful son, and Sharmishta desired to have a son as well. And she goes to King Yayati and at the right time and in a secluded place and requests him, please grant me a son. And it's said in the Shastras that a Kshatriya cannot refuse the request of a woman to marry him. But Yayati was, the back of his mind, he was remembering Shukracharya has told specifically not to get involved. But he was attracted to Sharmishta, so he cleverly applied what he wants in that situation, which is accepting her. And at this time, the story doesn't stop here. And she was pregnant. Devayani came to know from her friends that she's pregnant from her husband, and she gets furious now and runs away from home, goes to Shukracharya and complains. And Shukracharya gets furious. You useless fellow, I told you not to do this. You're not listening to me. I'm cursing you. You lose your all your youth, and you become old and invalid. And it is said that Yayati was still not satisfied at that time, even though he had children and he had so many maid servants and all that. He requested, he said, please forgive me, give me some solution. And then Shukracharya says, okay, fine, you can give your old age to somebody else. That is where all of this story comes. So it is said that by the time the children had grown up, Yadu was one of the sons of Yayati. And he asks first, the first son, and then asks Yadu. But look at this thing, right? Here, very nicely, Prabhupada is talking about. Let's see here. Yeah, Yadu was the eldest son. He said no. And then Yayati requests Turvasu, Druhyu and Anu. They also said no. But Prabhupada is distinguishing. Just imagine, both of them are saying no. But Yadu is saying no because of a different reason. That is why it so much matters in spiritual life, in this, what is your consciousness with which you're doing your actions. What is the difference? Just anybody looks at this. Turvasu said no, Yadu said no. And both are really religious, they don't know how to follow father's principle. Simple, that would have been our conclusion. But Yadu was saying no, not because he wanted to keep his youth, and thought that, he knew that his father takes the youth, he'll give it back as well. But he wanted to make sure that Lord appears sooner, and he was quoting a religious principle that unless one enjoys his youth, in his youth, his material desires during his youth, it becomes very difficult to become renounced. So this is a very important understanding here. We should properly understand what does this mean. There are the understanding of the Grhastha Ashram, because many of us are Grhasthas. It is important. What is the meaning of this? So in the Shastras, it is very, very clear. Bhagavatam is like, Amala Purana is very clearly, without any mincing words, directly giving the truth as it is. There are some very clear axiomatic truths that one should understand as far as our conditioned material body is concerned. This material body is a punishment. All of us, if anybody thinks this material body is not a punishment, you're in deep illusion. Right? And it is a prison. This material world is a prison. And the engagement, how are you imprisoned? And what is keeping you in the prison is this material body's interaction with the opposite sex. That is the prison that holds you. Invisible prison that holds you bound in this material world. So that's why, there are very clear guidelines given of how to deal with this problem in different phases of one's life. There is only one way to deal with this when you are in brahmacharya. What is that way? When you are younger ages? Abstinence. And study the Vedas, yes. You are supposed to engage in studies. Now, this also is based on a very foundational principle. The principle is delayed gratification. We know in this world it is a very powerful process. Anyway you're going to get married. And once you finish your education and your brahmacharya, people are going to be behind you to get married. If a person is not able to control this attraction and properly, practice brahmacharya for that young formative years, it is the biggest degradation that can happen for a person. Completely destroys their ability to do anything meaningful, even materially. Forget, spiritual and all that. Even materially, they cannot do anything useful if they cannot control brahmacharya. That is why the Vedic principles, Vedic system was so designed that to minimize the interactions, to keep that distraction to the minimum. That was the whole intention of the Vedic system in the brahmacharya. But today we see in the modern this principle is violated, and the consequences are that we are producing a society of people who are not able to do simple tapasya. They're not able to. That's why as a nation, as a society, society is getting degraded, unable to do even basic things. Most people are so much caught up in this thing. That is the nature of this world. One has to understand the principle of brahmacharya. Now, when a person is shifting from brahmacharya to grihastha, there are some principles that the Shastras are talking about. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, the concept of whether one remains in a brahmacharya your whole life or one becomes a grihastha is again based on certain principles, as Prabhupada is telling in the purport as well. Like, not everybody can follow brahmacharya their whole life, right? Basically, somebody who is practicing brahmacharya straight goes to vanaprastha, skipping grihastha ashram. In fact, scientifically, from a shastric perspective, that is the most intelligent thing to do. It is the path of least resistance, path of least problems, complications in life. But not everybody can practice that. That's why in the many places in Puranjana's story, a wife is compared to a fortress. When somebody properly follows Grhastha ashram and works together with the wife to practice spiritual life, a wife is compared to a fortress. In the protection of that fortress, a man is supposed to fight against material nature, like that. Now, that principle, as also here Yadu Maharaj is telling, that unless one enjoys in the youth, it is very difficult to give up renunciation. Again, this is where the nivritti marga and pravritti marga is being talked about. But even within the nivritti marga, grihastha ashram is still allowed. It is not that anybody who is a grihastha is actually following pravritti marga. Right? So, what does it mean though? The way to practice grihastha ashram is by, within the grihastha ashram, first of all, abstaining till the person gets married is itself a practice of brahmacharya. Our whole shastras talk about how brahmacharya can be practiced in all the ashramas, including grihastha ashrama. That is the beauty of this thing. Right? Now, the proper way to practice this is that during the grihastha ashram, one has to also limit their interaction with one's wife itself. And keep the focus, put Krishna in the center, keep the focus of serving the Lord, bringing up children in a Krishna conscious way, and taking care of the remaining ashramas. If these three things are systematically followed, even those 25 years of Grhastha ashrama can also be um, time period of spiritual evolution. The reality is that in the beginning of Grhastha ashram, one has to properly stabilize their spiritual situation, because it is an entanglement. The word three means to expand. Mainly your problems are expanding. So many things are getting added. What could have been so simple is now so complicated. There are so many people involved. So some other day I was talking to somebody. You have one father, one mother. Suddenly now you have one more father-in-law, mother-in-law. You have one brother, one sister. Now you have brother-in-law, sister-in-law. All your the number is increasing. Ultimately, you are responsible for them, right? They have some, they also have some challenges in life, old age, this thing. You are responsible for that. Now, instead of solving 2 problems, you are solving 4 problems now. With this thing. Everything is like that. That is the nature of the word three, to expand. Now, invariably, whether you are going from brahmacharya to vanaprastha or from grihastha to vanaprastha, going to vanaprastha is a very important aspect of a human life, which is practicing detachment from this material world. In practical terms, in one's consciousness, in one's actions, we have to be very careful about this. As one reaches the age of 50, doesn't matter what your situation is, what your, this thing. There's no end to, especially as a grihastha, there is no end to so-called responsibilities. Really speaking, you have no responsibility. Only one responsibility, to serve the Supreme Lord. Everything else is made up responsibility. That is the reality. Right? Now, how one very carefully, very purposefully detaches oneself is going to determine, your quality of the vanaprastha ashram. For many people, it is more of notional thing. They'll all talk the right things, but action should show. Action should show in terms of, if a grihastha has accumulated some amount of wealth in their grihastha ashram, how will one engage that wealth as you move to vanaprastha? Prabhupada joked about one merchant in Vrindavan. There's a big fanfare, big procession going on, of him taking vanaprastha and staying in Vrindavan and all that. And Prabhupada was commenting about the person and said, all his money is given to his children, now only he is giving himself to the Lord. That is not a proper practice of vanaprastha. If most of your productive life you spent creating that wealth, and that you give off to your children, and then I'm giving Krishna, I'm coming to you. There's one example, right? Prabhupada gives this example of, there was this poor man was going with his puffed rice, right? He was going, suddenly a wind came, and all the puffed rice flew away. And then he said, oh, Krishna Arpanam. Anyway, the puffed rice was going away, and he's saying Krishna Arpanam. Because ultimately, what matters is the consciousness. Krishna is present in your heart. You can't fool Krishna. You can't fool everybody else, but you can't fool Krishna, who is Paramatma in the heart. So that is why it is very important one properly follows the vanaprastha, and then leads to sannyas. Again, in Kali Yuga, it is said that, not everybody is, very few people are expected to take sannyas. So, then it becomes very important that, okay, if most of us are going to end at vanaprastha, how do we practice that in a proper way, in a Krishna conscious way, so that it gives us the benefit of almost being a sannyasi? Right? Now, what is the difference between vanaprastha and sannyas? Like, what is the big change that one has to do? travel, preach. And basically, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, that's why we say, right? You truly have to practice that, the whole universe is my Kutumbakam. So that's why, out of compassion, just like we are so concerned about, we are so concerned of our own children. How much ever we like our other community children, we will be nice, this thing. But ultimately, if deep inside you look, our commitment to our own children, okay, my own blood, much more. In a similar way, without any differentiation, if one is able to interact with everybody, that is a true practice of sannyas. There should be no differentiation. No longer this bodily, these things, oh, this person is my husband, this person is my wife, this person is my son, daughter, all that consideration should go away. Everybody is Krishna's children, not only human beings, but all living entities, all are prajas of the Lord. Oh, 7:34. I think we'll end here. Yantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Bol Premanande.